I've taken two footballing rivals and given them a big boost in FM24. On one side, I've given them an unlimited budget, a tycoon takeover, so they can go and spend as much as they want and buy all the players they could possibly dream of. But on the other side, a more long-term strategy. I've given them max youth rating and the best facilities that they could dream of so that they could go and develop their own new gens and maybe make their way to the top that way. Which team will be more successful? Well, we're going to go and simulate 5, 10, 15 years in FM24 and find out which way is best. Welcome to the Old Farm Derby, Ipswich versus Norwich. In today's video, which is a video where I'm just really curious. It's an idea that I've had based on the San Marino video that we did recently, where we maxed out the youth rating and we were trying to get really good players to come through and play for us for San Marino. Part 2 of that video, or that series, I suppose, is coming. It's in the works. Do not panic. We're going to do a part 2. It just takes a while to get there, just as a heads up. Today, though, I wanted to find out which is better. Is it better to have loads of money to go and spend, or is it better to think long term and have really good youth facilities and develop your own players? I've taken Ipswich and Norwich because they're rivals and they're relatively well matched. If you think about the championship table this year, relatively well matched. Enough so that I think we can make a bit of a judgment on which is better. Is it to have as much money as we have given Ipswich in this save, which if I show you using the editor here, is ridiculous. They have got silly money that they're going to be able to spend in today's simulation, especially when you look at the income here. There's money coming in there. That kit sponsor for £650 million. If they want to buy players, they're going to be able to buy players. We're going to leave it up to the AI to find out how they spend that money. But we're going to go 5, 10, 15 years into the future and see where do Ipswich end up, because they're going to have to rely on spending that money because they're not going to develop their own players. Their training facilities, youth recruitment, youth facilities are shockingly bad. And if we compare them to their rivals Norwich, they are the polar opposite. They have amazing facilities, amazing youth recruitment, and amazing youth facilities too. They are going to develop and bring in amazing new gen players. I've also set the England youth rating to the absolute max as well. So we're going to see amazing players being developed in this youth academy here. Will that, though, outdo the spending power of Ipswich? That's what we're going to find out in today's video. I'm genuinely curious, especially because they are well matched. We go to the championship table. Norwich are 5th here, whereas Ipswich are the favourites to go up. They're pretty well matched, like both in the hunt for promotion. Enough to find out that maybe Ipswich will get the success early, but maybe Norwich long term when they get the players coming through. I don't know what's going to happen, but I really do want to find out. So without further ado, I'm going to go 5 years into the future, I think. We're going to find out which players start to come through at Norwich, and let's see how Ipswich go and spend all of that money that we've given them, because they're going to need to, because they can't, their training's rubbish. So I'll see you in about 2028, and let's find out how this begins. Before we do jump through to 2028, quick one just to say, please do subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of thing. If you want to see more of this, if you enjoy this one, leave a like. That's all I'm going to say today. We're aiming for 75,000 subscribers on the channel. We're so close. We are so close. But yeah, let's go and find out how this simulation begins. Okay, then, here we are in 2028, and I genuinely don't know what's happened in this. You're going to find out with me as we go through it. So if I miss things, please pop them down in the comments of today's video in case, you know, random things happen, because there's usually something. You'll look at a Premier League table and see Liverpool won it by 1 point on the last day and things, and that's always quite fun. I'm going to look at the Premier League because I'm hoping they're both going to be in here, which they are. Okay, Ipswich 12th in 2028. Norwich just about avoiding relegation in 17th by 1 point. Did they win on the last day? No, they lost on the last day. So maybe they were safe anyway. Everton beat Ipswich as well on the last day. So they almost managed to climb above them and send Norwich down. We are hoping then that Ipswich are spending big money and they're doing slightly better at this stage. Maybe that's what we would expect, I suppose. I guess also we need to see where they finished previously. What we'll do is we'll have a look at both teams and kind of unpack what's been happening too. But generally, they're still pretty well matched. 12th and 17th in the Premier League, both in the top flight. No one's gone like, there's not a massive disparity between the two clubs at this stage. What I think we'll do is let's have a look back over the previous seasons and see where they've been in the Premier League, or maybe they've not been in the Premier League. We had, okay, so the year before this, Ipswich were in the Premier League, but Norwich were not. Norwich were in it the year before, but got relegated when Ipswich also went in it. So they've been a bit up and down, actually, it seems. Before that, Ipswich were in here and got relegated. They've actually avoided each other a little bit, it seems. Before that, Neither of them in the league in the first league of the first season. Obviously, then neither of them are in there at this stage. I suppose what we'll do then is we'll have a look at Ipswich first. Now, Ipswich are the team that have all the money to go and spend. Their estimated value is up at £1.44 million. If I show you, I can probably go to edit club details here and show you that the finances, they've got a lot of money. Their transfer budget is whatever that is. That 118 million? Not like stupid for a Premier League team, but it's still pretty good. And we know that there's going to be even more money coming in, look, from their income on here. So we'd expect to see a few big players in this squad. And Savio is listed as their key player. Patrick Vieira is their manager. They've got this Luis Suarez, not that one up front. Samuel Lino from Atletico Madrid. Harvey Elliott's there. Very good on FM is Harvey Elliott. They've got Joachim Anderson. Henderson as their goalkeeper. They have made some signings then, it would seem. Here's their record in the Premier League. So after going up in the first season here, of course, they've done this like back-to-back, League One to Championship, and maybe even in real life get into the Premier League this year. They did go up in third, so playoffs in our first season, then relegated, then promoted, and then they're back in the Premier League where they've survived this year. Well, last year, they were 17th last year and they're 12th this year. So they've maybe now established themselves as a Premier League team. How much money have they spent then? £41 million this year. There is that Luis Suarez, 18 million. I wonder who their record signing is. We'll keep an eye out on here. They did sell some players for good money here as well, look. Domina went for 38 million, so a lot of their budget came from that. So I wouldn't say that's huge spending at this stage. Year before, though, we're in the realms of huge spending. 163 million the year before that, most of it on Mateus Cunha from Wolves for £64 million. Is he still there? He is still at the club as well, although he wasn't in that starting 11 that we saw, was he? A lot of interesting signings in there. Savio I really like as well. Is he going to go to City in real life? I think he might be. Only 4.9 million out. Year before that, another 168 million pounds spent. Malero, Danilo, Guedes, a few big names in there as well. 27 million pounds in sales. They sold Gutierrez to Sheffield United. They signed him the year before for 15 million, 138 million. So they're spending over 100 million each year. That's a bargain, by the way. Harvey Elliott for 19 million. Samuele Ritchie, the midfielder, for 55 million, rising to 73 is big money. Ross Barkley for about 20 million pounds that's quite the comeback from Ross Barkley, isn't it? And first season, just the 9.5. This was when they were in the Championship. Overall, then, relative success. Where are they actually predicted to finish in this Premier League table? They're predicted to finish 13th, whereas Norwich was supposed to get relegated and managed to avoid it with their squad. Let's go and take a look at their team now. This is the big question, do they have any new gen players in their lineup? I can see one. They've got some interesting players. Brahimi, Sara in behind this. I think he's been there the whole time. He's always been at Norwich, right? Yeah, he's still there. Look, in their numbers 10 spots. They're relying on players they've already got. Not loads of signings. That's Sergio Gomez. No, Valentin Gomez, the Argentinian. He's quite good, actually. Dolan, though, is the man that stands out in this starting 11. He is a new gen. And he did come through the Norwich Academy. Okay, we've got our first genuine starter with really good attributes, really big value. That value range is very wide, 31 million to 92 million. He's a left wing back or a left winger. They're playing him left wing. This shows that things are working. It's still maybe early days because for these new gens to come through at 15, 16, and then turn into players that are going to be starting. He's now 19. Still early days, I'd say. Their hot prospect is a guy called Brendan Pitcher, who is a right winger. He might develop into something a bit special. Their under-18 squad should be full of pretty good players. And actually, if we just go by the values on here, Pitcher's at the top. The rest aren't particularly amazing. I think this is going to take a while for them to catch up. At this stage, it's close, but I'd say maybe Ipswich are ahead. I think we need to go another 5 years, though, and see. Well, look, media prediction are 20th, but they managed to stay up. Will we see more new gens here at Norwich? And will we still see a lot of spending at Ipswich? Let's go another 5 years. 2033. I'll see you there. All right, here we are then. 2033. Let's take a look at this Premier League table. Are they both in it, first and foremost? Yes. Do you know what? Not a lot has changed, according to this. 2030, we have actually gone forward 5 years. But we do now find Norwich just above the relegation zone and Ipswich sort of safe, but not really putting up any trees. They're in 13th, which is actually worse than before, right? Norwich are still very much just in 17th. So no real change in terms of positions. Let's start with Norwich and see where they've been in terms of those positions, they've been very steady eddies. They've done 17th, 15th, 14th, 16th, 14th, and then they've gone back to 17th now, haven't they? So not loads of difference there. However, looking at this squad, it does look like there are one or two more new gens in their lineup. They've got Enrique Araujo as their striker as well, which is quite cool because he's quite good. I'll assign him quite a lot. But there are new gens, which tells me that they are developing really good young players. Ellis is their striker. Ben Ellis. I need to go through and do this again here. Ben Ellis then, he looks like he's quite good. His value's not huge though. And he's actually leaving to go and he's joining Norwich. Oh, he's on loan from Fulham. So he actually didn't come through this youth intake at all. Ah, interesting. He was a Fulham Academy graduate and they've signed him. So that doesn't quite fit our agenda here, does it? But if I hang on a second, let me put the attribute analysis and things up on here for you. So he's not come through the intake, but I'm sure some of these other ones do. Let's look at them. Wolfenden, he he did come through the intake. He's had lots of loans, is now in the first team squad. His value is 0, which means I assume his contract is about to expire. He doesn't look amazing. They're developing players, but I don't know how good they actually are. This guy's got a cap for England. I suppose that's a good sign. Did he come? He came through the Bromley Academy, so that doesn't really work either. Left back Danny Fernandez. He came through in Spain. They are just kind of signing players. This is, I mean, I think it started well when you looked at that Dolan guy, who's actually still their key player and their captain. He's great. He's got caps for England as well. But this isn't necessarily what we were hoping for. Maybe it's their reputation. They've been struggling to keep hold of these players, even though it seems like lots of them are coming through. They've got a hot prospect called Grogard at the moment. Maybe he'll be the next big one. He's come through the intake. He's got big potential value at 16. So maybe in another 5 years, we'll see what Kieran Grogard can become. If I just look as well, Checker, he came through the Norwich Academy. He's one look. He's had a few loans as well. He looks very good. Really big value on him as well. Spanish 23-year-old. So there's one, definitely. Matic on the right-hand side. Was he a Norwich? No, they bought him for £1 million. When they're buying players, they are seemingly signing them for very cheap. They don't have loads of money to go and spend. They did have Yuri Tielemans, which is interesting. 75 million spent here. I suppose that's pretty decent. Nothing compared to Ipswich, though. 30 million, 40 million, 25 million. Maybe a bit more than I would expect. There's 200k in the first season there. But yeah, not silly, but maybe a bit more than I'd expect. Are they disappointing a little bit? I think maybe yes is the answer to that. Let's go and compare them to Ipswich, who, and I guess what we need to do also be checking, are they winning anything, I suppose. We'll check that before we go and continue again. Are they actually able to win any competitions, even though in the Premier League they've not really achieved too much? Here's this Ipswich team. Still lots of money, I assume. Let's check on their club details. What is their finances like? Yes, silly money that they can still go and spend. Kyle George is up front for them. Gabby Vega's been there for ages. Harvey Elliott is now their key player and captain. Seamus Coleman is their manager, which is a fun one. They've got some new gens themselves. Pablo Sanchez would be fun if they'd signed some new gens from Norwich, wouldn't it? But no, this guy is, very good, actually. He came from Racing Club in Argentina, but £18 million looks really good. Brites, who's there? Oh, yeah, it's Harvey Elliott is their key player. Chris Chalk, though, did come through their academy. No, came through at Stockport. Because actually, there's an interesting thing. They've actually managed. Now, there's no way for me to kind of like limit this, but because of all the money they've been given, they've actually then invested it in all of their training facilities. Their youth recruitment's still behind. But everything else has actually caught up. 5-star youth facilities. I actually think, if I go to Norwich, I think that's better. They've got better youth facilities now. Way worse youth recruitment. But in terms of training their players now, they've kind of caught up because of the money that they've got. So maybe it is better to have loads of money, because even then you can just use the money to spend it on youth facilities. Maybe by the next 5 years, they'll have really good youth recruitment as well. Something to keep an eye on for sure, I would say. I've just seen as well, they are in the Conference League, or they were in the Conference League, because they got to the final of the Conference League. Interesting. How did they qualify for that? Where have they finished, actually? So after our 5 seasons in, which was 2028, they finished 14th, 13th, 12th, and then 9th most recently. And then they've dropped back down to 13th here. So they did get into the Conference League somehow. If I go to landmarks, was that through... Will this show me the... Should show me the competitions. Runners up in the Conference League. I wonder how they actually got into that. Competitions. This isn't the best way. What is the best way of doing this here? I go FA Cup. How have they done in that? They've lost in the 5th round quarterfinal. League Cup, I suppose. Carabao Cup. They've lost in the final to Leicester this year. Semi-final. They're doing okay in the cups, but domestic leagues, look, there's their finishes. Nothing. Oh, actually. It's in the Championship. They came 4th. That was their playoff promotion, I think, way back a few years ago. Conference League, that's their first European semi-success, I suppose, being runners-up. I think both could have done better, but I think we'd have to say, because of that Conference League run and the consistent finishes above them, Ipswich are still winning. And I think if they can develop this youth recruitment, they're going to be way ahead. We're going to have to go another 5 years, I think, and find out what happens then. I'm just going to check, actually, in Norwich's history, competitions here, and just check over the last few years. Have they done anything in the FA Cup? 5th round semi-final. They did get to a semi-final. No finals for them. Carabao Cup, quarterfinals, nothing for them. And there is no European competitions for them. So I think, yeah, Ipswich are ahead. We're going to go 5 years into the future, and then we can decide which is better. At the moment, I think it might be the Tycoon Takeover. I'll see you in 2038, though. Okay, then here we are at the end of our journey. Let's find out then which is better, a Tycoon Takeover or having perfect youth facilities. Let's go to the Premier League table and start there. And I'm hoping that both of our teams are still going to be in this Premier League, because if they're not, that is going to be an issue. Let's take a look at the table where we have, okay, Ipswich are 11th and Norwich are 16th. It seems a bit familiar, doesn't it? It's kind of the same there or thereabouts where they've been this entire simulation, even 15 years now in the future. Interestingly, Ipswich have qualified for the Europa League despite finishing 11th. Now, that makes me think they've won something. If you win the Europa League, if you win the FA Cup or the League Cup, do you qualify for the Europa League? That tells me I think they've won a competition somewhere down the line. Otherwise, it's like fair play or something. I think we should start with them. Let's go to Ipswich, our free spending Ipswich. Interestingly as well, we're going to keep an eye on this. Their youth recruitment is up to 1, which is still below average, but they are still catching up. And if we were to continue this, we'd probably see them go further and further ahead of Norwich, I think, eventually. They've actually got Xabi Alonso as their manager as well. So what did they win? Let me go to if we go to the overview, I think I've spotted what they've won. They've got an FA Cup, which I think they had before, a Premier League. They've got a Europa Conference League. Now, that has to be new. If I go to maybe landmarks. Yeah, okay. This year, 2038, they've won the Europa Conference League. They've beaten Ghent in the final. Let's have a look at who their goal scorers were in this final. A European trophy. This might just be the difference to crown which one of our simulations is going to be better here. I think Ipswich are going to take that. So the Tycoon Takeover is going to be better. Goals from Davies, who I assume is a new gen as well. He is. Again, we're going to have to put these back in here. A new gen attacking midfielder. Didn't come through at Norwich, which is what we wanted to keep an eye on. Mike Davies with the first goal, and the second one from Willems, who is a left-back / left winger who played for Real Madrid and Liverpool and has ended up here. Congratulations, Ipswich. Let's take a little peek at where they finished in more recent seasons then. They were up to 8th. 8th, 10th, 15th, 8th, 13th, 9th. So 8th being their best finish throughout the entire simulation. They finished there twice. This year back down to 11th, but they did win that European trophy. You know what? I think we can call them the winners, to be honest. I actually want to just check just in case any of these came through. They've got Juan Carlos Ramirez. They've got good players, to be fair to them, and you'd expect them to because of the money that they can spend. They spent 190 odd million this season. Some players. Who was the most expensive in here? 48 million for Juan Carlos Ramirez, who is the one I actually just looked at, isn't it? There's Willems, look, who scored in that Europa Conference League final. Sold a few players for good money too. Chris Chalk, he was the hot prospect on the last part of the simulation. 91 million the year before that. 242 million pounds spent the year before that. I'm expecting a big one in here. Chris Rigg being brought in, a real player. Chris Rigg for 53 million pounds from Leicester. Valkylie from Bayer Leverkusen. Maybe that was an Alonso signing, potentially, maybe. And the year before that, 54 million, a bit less. 54 million the year before that as well. 99 million, 197 million before that. So they're still spending the money. No major successes except for that Europa Conference League. let's compare it to Norwich, where I'm hoping to see a full team of new gens, which is exactly what we've got, give or take, just literally Hyson. Dean Hyson, he was at Juventus on loan at Roma, I think, in real life. Actually a very good young player. He's now 33 and playing for Norwich with, what? Sorry. They've got a striker called Andy Andrew. I'm not having that. That's, no Welsh family with the surname Andrew is calling their child Andy. It's not even Andrew. Andy Andrew. Did he come through at Norwich? No, he came through at Sunderland. They've picked him up on a free. He's now leading the line for them, as well as leading the line for Wales, where he scored 45 and 91. What a player. Big up the Andy Andrew. Do you know what? That's going to be the comment for today, isn't it? If you've made it to this far in the video, you can prove it by putting a comment that says, big up Andy Andrew. Which, I don't know why I've said big up, as if it's, you know, the 1990s these days. But there he is, leading the line. Let's go and see who their key player is, which is Kim Dae-Hwan. Did he come through at the club? No, he's been bought as well. He came through at Ulsan. I want to know which of these players is actually... Let's have a look at their hot prospect. 20 years old, has come through the youth intake here. I would suspect that they've really have made some good players. Just hard to know which ones they've bought, which ones they've developed themselves. He came through at Gijón. Lemma at right back. Again, he's an Argentinian that came through in Argentina. Allsop. He was at Crewe at the start of his... Coventry, sorry, at the start of his career. Fernandez, we looked at before. He came through in Spain. Walters. Was he in Norwich? No, hang on a minute. Was he in Norwich? No, Manchester City. Vigo. They're picking up the new gens, but not necessarily developing them themselves then. Ramos. Was he one? No, another one that came through at Gijón. Do they have a link with them? Maybe they do. This one, oh, no. He came through at Maccabi Tel Aviv. So none of the first team, at least in this lineup, have come through at Norwich. I wonder if they've sold any players for big money because of their new gens being developed. Philip Coulson, was he developed here? No. Oh, yeah, he was actually. So I suppose they're selling players for okay money. 13 million for him. That was more recently. Years before that, any big sales? 17 million for Bilal Brahimi, who has retired now. I think he was a real player, wasn't he? 1 million in sales. 26 million in sales this year. Harry Leonard, was he? He's a head of youth development now. He wasn't even developed here either, and he's a real person. So I'm not quite sure they've made the most of this amazing youth setup that they've got. I think they have developed good players, but have they developed good players that are world-beating good players? I'm not quite sure they have, and it's very difficult without going through every single player. Bruninho, let's hope he came through here. No, he didn't. He was at Benfica beforehand. Without going through every player, it's difficult to tell, but they've not had the successes that you'd maybe hope for. They've still got 5-star. They've actually added to their youth facilities. It's back up to 5 stars here. I'm maybe a bit disappointed with what they've managed to achieve. Compare that to what we've managed to have come through our youth intakes in the San Marino save that we're doing. Not quite as strong, I'd say. Maybe it's more competitive being England, and maybe those other English teams with bigger reputations have picked up the players. Not quite sure, but I think we have to go and say that Ipswich, they beat them 3-0 in the more recent game, the most recent game. Can I actually have a look at the head-to-head? Is that something I can do easily? I can't, because I'm not a manager of one of the teams, but I think we have to say that Ipswich have been the winners here. I wonder if they've developed any of their own really good players too. Like, yeah, this guy is their hot prospect. Actually, they bought him. Okay, that fits. That's better. He is their hot prospect. They've got Mike Davies. Did he come through the youth intake here? No, they've signed all of their players. Their youth recruitment not being very good is probably why. I think we're going to give this one to Ipswich. It's better, officially, according to this video anyway, better to have a Tycoon takeover than to bother worrying about youth intakes and everything. Just buy players. It's easier, isn't it? Just do it on the never. I'm going to at least tell myself that now going forwards. Thank you very much for watching, though. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like. Let me know what you want to see next. Are there any real, experiments, simulations like this one that you want to see? Maybe if you put perfect players in or something, let me know in those comments down below. And if you did make it to the end, let me know by saying Andy Andrew, because it wasn't even Andrews. It was Andy Andrew. Just very weird. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later. Bye-bye.